Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I would like to make a contribution in respect to the interim report into nuclear power generation in Australia, and particularly from the point of view of my electorate of Flynn in central Queensland, where there has been a proposal to possibly build a nuclear facility at the at the Callide Power Station near Biloela. And the whole energy debate is obviously front and centre. It is very topical. There are many different points of view. It is a rather polarising debate, with those that support traditional power generation, coal and gas, versus the renewable energy industry, wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, pumped hydro and so forth. Other alternative energy sources such as production of green hydrogen, etc. One of the most tragedies, or one of the biggest tragedies to me in this whole energy debate, is that nearly 25 years ago there was a decision made in Parliament House here to put a moratorium on nuclear energy in Australia. And what that has led to is a whole generation of people in our education system who've not pursued the science and everything that is involved in respect to nuclear anything. And that has put Australia in a very difficult position right now. We know that we have signed up to the AUKUS program to have nuclear submarines here. We will have to train people to manage, to build, to operate, and we'll have to come up with the technologies to deal with the waste and the maintenance and everything in regard to having nuclear submarines. Having made that decision, and as Australians, and our government has committed some $4 billion to Rolls-Royce to develop those nuclear reactors that will go in those submarine boats, doesn't it make practical common sense to include industrial and domestic nuclear power? Well, to me it does. And these arguments that are very exaggerated in respect to having nuclear energy are very topical and, as I said, very polarising. There are over 400 nuclear reactors around the world providing clean, efficient and reliable power to many industrialised countries. And many of those industrialised countries are revamping their nuclear systems and reinvesting in nuclear systems. And for Australia to shut itself out from that possibility is, to me, a tragedy for future generations of Australia. We should be having sensible and logical debates about our energy future. Here in Australia, we do have a nuclear reactor at Lucas Heights. It's been there since 1960 or thereabouts, and it is recognised as a gold standard medical nuclear facility. There are scientists and the medical profession in general who come to Sydney, to Lucas Heights, to pursue their profession, to make studies in respect to medical nuclear technology. All of that waste that has been produced there at Lucas Heights is stored on site and has been since it was started. Come 2030, there is an argument that Lucas Heights will run low of storage, and that is why the previous government developed a proposal to build a nuclear waste site at Kimber in South Australia, but that has now been vetoed. But the point is that we've already got this technology. We're already dealing with it. We've already signed up to the AUKUS agreements with the possibility of having nuclear-powered submarines. Why can't we have this logical debate in respect to nuclear energy and let the experts make these decisions and feed into these conversations, instead of toing and froing with politicians such as myself who really know nothing about it? We're only scratching the surface. The former speaker talked about social licence. Up in central Queensland, where I come from, as I said, there's a proposal to build a facility there by the coalition government, should we become the government. I have held many, many forums, a dozen in fact, on this very subject. And of all of the people who responded to us, some 3,000 people, 68% of them were in favour of pursuing nuclear technology. It's pretty much a must-have where I come from. The Flynn electorate in central Queensland is one of the big economic engine rooms in Australia. We have the coal industry, the alumina industry, the coal loading terminal at Gladstone. It's the world's 4th largest coal loading terminal. The gas industry, heavy industry of all sorts, the railways and all of that sort of thing. It needs a constant, reliable source of energy. And people know up there you cannot run the alumina smelter and the 2 refineries there on wind turbines and solar panels. It just simply won't work. You cannot run the electric train system to the central Queensland coal mines that deliver 70 million tonnes of coal to the port of Gladstone. You can't do that on wind turbines and solar panels. It just is illogical to even suggest that you can. You need a system of batteries and pumped hydro and an enormous investment to make it even feasible to work. So this is another argument that has come up in this report, and that's about cost. What does it all cost? And I know we're only coming up with ballpark figures, and the coalition has engaged Frontier Economics to do their estimations on it, and they've come up with a figure of approximately $330 billion. And that's expensive. I recognise that. But so is renewable energy. And again, Frontier Economics came up with a figure of over $600 billion for renewable. Well, I would argue that it's going to be a lot more than that. And I'll tell you why that is, because in my electorate, again, we are having these enormous wind turbines being built, and I'm dealing with over 80 proposals in my electorate alone. We know from facts that are there now, Lotus Creek, for an example, $1.3 billion project, 46 turbines. If you do the math there, that's $28 million a turbine. I've done a lot of work with Stephen Kowalski mapping all of these turbines right around Australia, and there are some 21,000 of them that we have identified and we have mapped. So if you do some ballpark figures on that and use a nominal figure of $20 million per turbine and multiply that by 20,000 turbines, you're talking $400 billion. And that's just for the wind turbines. When you start adding in the transmission lines, the pumped hydro and all of the network charges and everything that's got to happen to make it work, Princeton University in America and Melbourne University's estimation of $1.5 trillion by 2030, in my humble opinion, is more like the ballpark. But if we ask that question of the government, how much will renewable energy cost us? They won't tell you. They don't have a figure. And I find that quite appalling, to saddle up Australians to these enormous projects, particularly when they've got issues like the capacity investment scheme, where Australians will be asked to underwrite the power generation of these projects, even if they don't produce any power. And that's quite a ridiculous notion. So nuclear energy, as I said, is widely accepted where I come from, and I understand there is angst amongst communities everywhere. Everybody uses these silly little memes of three-eyed fish and so forth. What nonsense! What absolute nonsense! As I said, there are over 400 nuclear facilities around the world, providing the cleanest and most reliable power to the biggest industrial nations on the planet. And we as Australians should be having sensible debates about what our future holds and how we are going to provide for our consumers reliable and affordable and energy that has longevity attached to it.